Welcome to the Business Women Australia podcast show, the podcast that brings together industry leaders to discuss the latest trends, insights and strategies. So sit back and relax. Let's get inspired by the amazing women who are shaping the future of professional women in Australia. Welcome everyone. Welcome to our Business Women Australia podcast show. And today we have a really cool topic which I've been told apparently they don't go together, but they really do. And it's mental health in cybersecurity. My guest today says her passion and mission is to educate business owners that cybersecurity is an essential requirement for business operation. And joining me today is the ever lovely Caitriona Forde. Welcome, Caitriona.
Thanks, Leanne. So good to be here with you and see you in the podcast world. It's so exciting.
And so your programs help organise businesses to build cyber-safe behaviours. And develop culture of cyber awareness, which one of my favourite things that you do to help create a culture of cyber awareness is your ninjas, when you have your cyber ninjas, and I'm sure we'll touch on that soon. And like me, you're also a dog mum. So you can, if dogs don't like people, you can't trust them. So it shows that you're well trusted in the cybersecurity world. That's how I view it anyway.
Yeah, so true, so true.
And you've been able to turn Babble, which is good for me, into really easy to understand programs. And you believe that cyber skills are life skills and they're helpful when you work at home as well, which is fantastic. And not just that, you also took out the 2020 BWA Awards.
I did, yes. That was a very proud moment, I have to say.
So, well, we're proud of you and we love you.
Thanks. Well, I love you too. The best community of business women.
So we'll get straight into it because, you know, it's cybersecurity and we could probably talk at length on a lot of things, especially as I found out that we are the most hacked country in the world. Is that still correct?
Yeah, well, that was the accolade we had at the end of 2022, and the reports are saying that we still are the most hacked nation in the world, or we're definitely in the top 5 anyway. But yeah, it was the gold medal that we didn't want. But we have it now, and I suppose it was a massive wake-up call, especially to our government. Our government has really stepped up this year and are saying they're going to help make Australia the most secure nation by 2020 or by 2030. So we have a bit to go yet, but we have to start somewhere. And I think all of us in the cybersecurity realm know that we have been falling behind. Especially like myself, I'm originally from Ireland, have a lot of contacts still in the UK and the US, and you see the progress that they're making. I've just come back from a trip back home and met with some companies over there that I used to do work with, and there's no doubt about it, the maturity levels of even individuals over there is much more greater than what we're seeing here. Just the average internet user or computer user over there seems to have a heightened awareness where we're catching up here, but the tides are turning, and I can feel it this year more so than ever before. People are starting to take notice and realize that it's something that we all have to learn and do.
And it's funny because when you talk about the maturity side of it, I think, you know, I'm a Gen Xer. So, you know, we've seen the changes come along through the days. And I thought, you know, the next generations will actually be more cyber aware than what I was, to realize that, you know, so many people I've used, you know, 2FA or MFA, and people going, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, I thought this was something that everyone would, to me, it's a basic to have multi-factor authentication.
I wish.
But it seems to be an unknown factor for a lot of people.
And I think the challenge there is, Leanne, that most people, the terminology is difficult to understand. You know, 2FA, MFA, they're all, you know, language that most people don't know what that is. And in actual fact, it's pretty simple once somebody shows you how to do it once. But I think the challenge is that it sounds difficult, it sounds scary, and if it's not set up correctly, people do have challenges with it, and then they resist it because they're like, oh, it's too hard and it takes too long. But if it's set up properly, it's actually pretty easy. I think that's,
do you know what's really hard?
Yep.
What's really hard is if your account gets hacked and you can't get it back.
Well, that's where today's topic, I suppose, came out of. And, you know, just as a caveat, I am not a mental health professional, but what I am saying is that mental health impact from organizations, individuals. And when you talk about losing social media accounts, you know, when people come to me after they've had their Instagram or their Facebook account hacked, honestly, the stress and worry and concern, you know, it's shocking. You know, I had a lady a few weeks ago reach out to me, and she said she's been building her Facebook business page for 10 years, and she had over 200 reviews on her page and 5-star reviews, and that's how she was building her business, and that was how she was attracting her new leads and things, was through her business Facebook page, and it's gone. And she's like, in her eyes, that's 10 years worth of work gone.
Yeah, it would be.
You know, and the impact that on that, she ended up taking a few weeks off and going completely off social media. And it, you know, I was at B-Sides, which is it's a conference, a cybersecurity conference here in Perth. It was a few weeks ago, and there was a really awesome presentation about mental health and cybersecurity, and they talked about, which was totally mind-blowing to me because I'd never thought about it in this way, it was the grief that we go through. Now, I always associated grief with losing somebody, as I'd lost my dad when I was 23 of cancer, and he's only 47. So grief is a very real thing for me, and I know what it is. But when we talk about grief in the sense of if you lose your social media account, that you're going to go through all those same steps of grieving because you've lost this part of your business. And to me, I was like, I've never really thought of it in that respect before, but it made so much sense.
And when you think about it, it does, because it's ingrained in so much of our lives, like even our personal accounts. You know, I've seen people who have lost a personal account, and we talk about grief. They actually had some really cherished photos of their mum.
Yeah.
And, you know, the phone that they're originally on is long gone because they've had it on Facebook, and all of a sudden this person's taken their life.
Yeah.
And it sets up that wave again of loss because, you know, you've lost these really important memories.
Yeah, 100%. I had a business coach a few years ago. She had lost her personal Facebook page, and she had lost her husband the year prior. And as you say, it was those memories that she had lost, those precious photos that sometimes we post on our social media accounts and we don't save them anywhere else, thinking that they'll always be there. And it's that side of, you know, the cybercrime, I think, that we're only starting to see, and people are starting to talk about it a little bit more as well.
Yeah. And, you know, then we start to bring, obviously this goes into business because, and, you know, the business side of it, we've seen, you know, the big three with the data breaches. Well, Optus, Latitude and Medibank.
Yeah.
You know, there would have been, people don't realize there's a very human element over those breaches who are also feeling the stress of, I've done this to others, you know, I could lose my job. I've opened up a portal that I shouldn't have, really.
Yeah.
And, you know, bringing that into businesses. So, you know, what do you think would be like the biggest challenges you'd find with business and cybersecurity?
Yeah. Well, when you say that, Leanne, I'm preparing at the moment for a board briefing that I'm doing in a few weeks' time. And I happened to stumble across a webinar that it was around the new guidelines that ASIC has put in place for directors and business owners. But this webinar, he was on the chair, I think he was maybe the CEO of Toll, when Toll had their cyber breach back a number of years ago, I think it was 3 years ago now. And he talked about, from a business perspective, that they were trying to recover and get everything up and operational again. And he also was thinking at the same time, okay, we still have all these business expenses. We're still having to pay our staff. We're still having to have our operating expense, but we are not bringing in any money because we cannot, our systems are all down, so we can't invoice. So he said he started to think about, do we need to liquidize the company? Is that where the organization's going? So you can imagine the stress, that the impact of that, all the thousands of people that you employ in that organization, that they might lose their jobs because of a cyber incident if they couldn't recover. So I think, those are the challenges that I am seeing, especially in the small business space. Like, I primarily nowadays work in larger corporates. I still support the small business space because it's a passion for me. I've spent, a large portion of my career working with small business owners. But at the moment, they're struggling because of, coming out of the other side of the pandemic, the economic crisis that we're in. And a lot of small business owners just unfortunately are still burying their heads in the sand when it comes to cybersecurity. A lot of them don't even know where to start. It's like, well, what do I need to do? And I think a lot of them, unfortunately, and we can see this in larger business as well, they focus most of their attention on improving their technology in the business. So getting antivirus softwares and firewalls and MFA and all the technology side, but they forget about the two crucial components, which is the processes and the people. So when you talk about cybersecurity, it's always based on technology, people, and process. And a lot of organizations, unfortunately, focus on the technology side and never think about those processes that need to be improved on and the people. And when we look at cybercrime, the stats out there is that at least 90% of all cyber incidents can be traced back to social engineering or, the human element. What organizations are focusing on that. They're focusing on the technology side instead of the people side. So I think, there's a lot of challenges out there. As I said, it's the language that sometimes cybersecurity can leave it, business owners feeling like it's too difficult. One thing that I've been talking to my community a lot about recently is we need to make it real. We need to make it okay for people to share their stories when it happens to them, and not have this fear of reputational loss or brand loss. And, I think business owners don't want to tell when they've had a cyber incident because businesses won't trust them, and they might lose their reputation. They might lose clients, might lose opportunities. And I think this is the part that is difficult at the moment, is because then some other business owners don't think it's real because it hasn't happened to them yet. And then when it happens to them, they're like, oh, it's nearly too late. And I think, if I reflect on especially a lot of the small businesses that I've helped in the last 12 to 18 months, the first thing that nearly every single one of them say to me is, I never thought it would happen to me. And I think that's the problem.
And one of the things that I always remember is, and I remember you doing a talk and you showed the live action, like the live stream with where they're lighting up where the security attacks were happening across the world. And a lot of people don't realize that these agencies that plan all these breaches, they operate in 8-hour shifts around the globe so that they can target us when we're trying to exit work at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and, this needs approval right now so you can get out. They're not, we talk about social engineering. They're not there to get into the computer. They're there to get us to allow them into the computer.
Yeah. And some of the tactics that I see, they're ruthless. They really are ruthless. I seen a business owner probably about eight weeks ago. It was before my trip to Ireland. And there was an invoice come from one of their suppliers, and the invoice wasn't received on time. Then when it did come in, the bank account details on the invoice had been changed. But in the email, it said, sorry for the delay in getting the invoice to you. My friend has committed suicide, so things are a bit delayed. Now, the business owner said they didn't want to then, ask why bank account details have been changed on the invoice. And they paid this $50,000 invoice, without querying. And obviously it hadn't been. The whole thing had been crafted. You know, the invoice had been changed. The criminal had put this text in to say, you know, so they'll use tactics like that, you know, plays on our emotions, that, you know, as human beings, you know, as a business owner, you're feeling, you know, awful that somebody has to go through losing their friend to suicide. You know, there's so much tactics that they use that's it's shocking. You know, they know what makes us tick. They know the way that we think, and that's the challenge and the battle that we're facing now. Is you know, they no longer are using, you know, the tactics that would have worked. They're using new tactics now to make us take actions that we wouldn't necessarily take if we weren't in a rush. And you're right, they know to target us. You know, lunchtime is a big time that they'll target, because people are distracted on their phones. Friday afternoon, we're waiting for the weekend, and, you know, we're just like, yep, and get things done because we want to get out the door on a Friday afternoon. You know, there's all different times that they will target us, because they know we're more susceptible to reacting at those times.
And, you know, with going through these breaches and losing their data, what's the best way that they can save their information?
Look, it's difficult, like, as a business, and it's very hard to give general advice on that. But if you're a business owner, what we're seeing now is that data is what they're after, even with ransomware attacks now. So ransomware is where they encrypt your files. And it used to be that they'd hold you to ransom, saying that if, you know, give us X amount of money and we'll give you the decryption key and you can get your files back. But now what we're seeing is that because especially in the US, the governments have, you know, are preventing people from paying the ransoms. They're now stealing data and then threatening to sell that on the dark web. So, you know, it could be your client's data. It could be projects that you're working on. It could be information about, you know, your customers, whatever they're stealing now. So from a data perspective, you know, that's what they're after. So, you know, as a business owner, you need to make sure that you know where you're saving your data. You know, this whole working from home as well has, you know, I suppose opened up a little bit of risk if you're not sure how your employees are saving the data when they're working from home and things like that as well. So you really need to be working with a reputable IT company that will put systems in place that will ensure that your data has been backed up and it's secure and it's in a secure location as well. So there's not one, or there's not a silver bullet, should I say, because everybody's different in the way that their business operates. But I think, you know, you need to look at where you're saving your data, how is people accessing it, and is it secure where you're saving it?
Yeah. And, you know, like, how would they then support one of their staff members of cybercrime?
Yeah, I spoke about it and I read about it in the Buzz magazine. If you haven't seen the Buzz, go and have a look.
I love the Buzz magazine.
It's fantastic. Such a good magazine. But that's what I read about in my article is historically, unfortunately, IT and cyber people, and I can say this because I worked in IT for a long time. I've done a lot of IT support and worked in the IT MSP space. And sometimes we can be a little bit geeky and a little bit technical and sometimes not approachable. And that's, I think, I earned the reputation of being that bridge between IT and the rest of the business, because I'm not uber geeky, and I suppose I can turn the technical jargon into a way that people can understand it. And I think for businesses, we need to create a safe environment for people to be able to speak up when they've made a mistake. Hackers want you to feel that guilt, to feel ashamed, and not speak up when you've made a mistake, because that allows them then to do their nasty work. So as a business owner, you need to be making sure that your staff feel comfortable that if they have clicked on a link or something looks suspicious, that they're going to be able to come and speak to you about that without any repercussion. And I think that's what, you know, all businesses should be doing, is making staff understand that you could get targeted. And if you do something, it is not your fault. These hackers are very crafty. They know how to get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. But the worst thing that you can do is sit there and say nothing. And I suppose that's one of the things that I have seen a lot, is that people do be afraid to speak up or report an incident in case they're going to get into trouble. So it's creating that safe environment for your staff to say, oh, yeah, I think I've made a mistake here. Can you help me?
Yeah. And, you know, like, especially I think after the Optus breach came out, they came up with this thing about charging the bigger businesses up to $1 million for a security breach. Yeah. And then we're also hearing that filter down where, you know, first level, you know, staff will, you know, get training if you know, they mess up, and then it'll go down to they're losing their job. You know, which does have that, instill that bit of fear into people. But what do you think they can do better to help their staff become cyber aware?
Yeah, training. And when I say training, unfortunately, there is a wave of compliance where organizations are realizing that they need to do security awareness training with their staff. So they'll send them e-learning modules that are not very engaging and not very fun, and tick that box, but it's not actually changing behaviors. So, you know, you need to create things, you know, I use a lot of gamification, you know, as we talked about the cyber ninjas. Security Awareness Month is coming up now in October, and I'm working with a mining company at the moment. We're creating a game for October, and the prize is actually a new iPhone or a new Samsung. Who would not want to be part of this game? I'm like, I want to work in this organization. Part of this, but you know, that's awesome, because it's encouraging people to take part, and as part of being part of the gamification, you're learning things like the tactics that they're using for phishing, and you know, so as well as being educational, it's fun, and at the end of the day, you could win a new phone. Who doesn't want to win a new phone?
And I think, and at the other end of the day, it's also creating that super safe space to go, look what I found.
Yeah.
And bringing it to attention, because, you know, as you see that they might not just target one person in a company, they can create these multiple emails.
Yeah.
So they're going to try and get someone.
Yeah.
So bring that to the forefront.
Yeah. Also with training is, you know, it cannot be once a year type training, you know, because these are ever evolving, and unfortunately, once a year doesn't change our behaviors. We will head off back into our real life and into our jobs and forget about whatever that training was. So if we look at even what the safety industry has done to change behaviors in the safety industry, you know, there's constant reminders. And as somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, you know, you'll get a newsletter with maybe report, you know, sharing an incident on a work site. Maybe somebody has cut their finger and it's pretty gruesome, but it's there to go, look what happens if you don't take safety serious. And the same with the cybersecurity. We need to have those constant reminders, whether it's, you know, your lock screen could have a reminder. I was at an event last Thursday night with Australian Women in Security, and one of the speakers said that she goes around the office now, and if people leave their computer unlocked, she has a printout of like somebody's eyes. So she's all different people's eyes. And I'm watching you. And it's just a fun and engaging. Like she said, she has ones of the, you know, the CEO. She's ones of The Rock, you know, the different people's eyes. And she just leaves it on there. And it's just a reminder, you know, you shouldn't get up and walk away from your computer and not lock it. And, you know, that's something simple like that. I was recently in a coffee shop on Hay Street, and I seen this high profile lawyer. He's always on the TV, and that's how I recognized him. He works with high profile cases. But I was sitting to have my lunch, and he must have had a private call, but he got up from his seat, left his laptop sitting unlocked, and walked out of the coffee shop and had his call outside for 10 minutes. I was going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. all the sensitive information about high profile cases that he works on was on this laptop sitting unlocked in front of me. And I had to say to him when he come back in, I was like, I hope you don't take offense, but do you realize? And he was so shocked. He was like, I never even thought of that. And he thanked me for it. And he's like, you have really just made me think about, the actions that he just took. So it's simple things like that, that organizations can bring in. If you have a toolbox talk in the morning, just a quick reminder, about not clicking on links on emails, or have you changed your password recently, or, so just quick things. But also one of the things that works very well is we all use technology, not just at work, but we use it at home as well. So if you can teach your staff about how to be safe at home, and as I say, that life skill, because that's what it is, it's a life skill now, then they bring it into work. So if you have that healthy suspicion in your day-to-day life, when you receive a text message, when you receive a phone call, when you receive emails, if you generally operate and use technology in that way, so that you're not clicking on things and you're not giving information and data away, then you'll bring that into your workplace as second nature. So that's why I call it a life skill, because I think that's where we need to go, is that everybody, even in your personal life, it's like, as I said, it's like driving a car. If you go to a job and part of that job is you have to drive, well, you've already learned how to drive before you've went into that job. So it's like, same thing with computers. We need to learn how to use them safely in our personal lives, and then we'll bring them into the workplace.
Yeah, and I see that because I've got a 13-year-old who's right into technology, and one of the first things I'm sending him to is, they've got the kids coding, and they do this, like capture the flag.
Capture the flags, yeah.
With security. And I think, that's such a great thing just to implement from the start, so that they're already aware.
Yeah. So true. Like, and I think that's, as a generational thing, we do need to upskill our kids more. I have a 12-year-old nephew, and it's the same. He started his own YouTube channel, and, I'm having to, educate him on what he should be sharing and what he shouldn't be sharing on his YouTube channel. And he doesn't think of it from a risk perspective. And he's just sharing a lot of personal stuff about him and his sister. And I'm like, you don't know who's watching this, and it's open to the public. And, so it's education, really.
Yeah. So, obviously it does have such a huge mental and emotional impact when we're affected by a cybersecurity breach. We've seen people, and it's one thing to lose photos and to grieve that, but to lose your business, your reputation, there's a lot of more harm than just losing some money.
And it's like also business relationships. I'm working with a company at the moment, and they've been impacted. They've had a breach, and it's causing friction between them and their IT company now as well. Even though their IT company done all the right things, the company's blaming the IT company when it's not the IT company's fault. And like, this was a relationship that's now gone sour because of criminals. Neither of them wanted this situation. And same thing if if with business email compromise, I've seen it with a haulage company that I did work with a few years ago. They had a business email compromise, and it was with one of their customers, which was a large mining company. And they had lost the contract then going forward, so they'd lost work. So it does impact business relationships as well. And, this is the sad thing about it, is that criminals are behind this, and they're impacting the hard work that business owners put into to build their business. I've seen some crazy losses this year, anything from $10,000 up to $200,000 and more. And for some small businesses, that could put your lights out, it really could. And it's hard to recover from that. So, think about if you were a business owner and you get up tomorrow morning realizing that you're now have lost $50,000 in your business, the impact that it has, on some business owners is it's massive. And a lot of small businesses as well are family-owned businesses. So then it brings, problems into the family home, because some of them are a man and wife type situation, and maybe they've got kids in the business. So then it causes the stress outside the business as well. So yeah, it's far-reaching, the impact that it can have, unfortunately.
So we've reached time pretty quickly, as we knew we would. But so before we log off, I just want to know, what's the best tips you can give people to implement today that could help save them?
The number one thing, and I say this to everybody, slow down and stop and think about what you're doing. Because I run what you call simulated phishing for organizations. So I draft phishing campaigns, send them out. And in some organizations, we see that people will click on links and emails within the first 10 seconds of opening an email. So we're not even reading what's in the emails or what's in the text message. So with emails, text messages, websites, slow down and make sure that, this is legit. Clicking on links and opening attachments, we need to move away from those types of risks, because that's where they're at. And then from a security perspective, about controls that you can put in place, multi-factor authentication, strong passwords, a good antivirus software. And if you are running a business, you really need to get a reputable IT company in to set it up, and listen to your IT companies. Most of them that are reputable are not out there to just scam you and make money out of you. A lot of them are there to do the right thing, and the advice that they are giving you is to protect your business. And then train your people, speak to your people, and make sure that they feel safe to speak up when they've made a mistake. The sooner that you can take action when something happens, the easier it is to recover. And this is what we see, is that when people maybe click on a link in an email on a Friday afternoon, go home over the weekend, well, that's allowed it to spread through the business over the weekend. So if they had spoke up on the Friday afternoon and said, I think I might have clicked on something that I shouldn't, it could have contained it to just maybe one computer instead of spreading it to the whole lot. So I think the big, thing is just take action. There's so many things. If you haven't implemented a password manager, do that. If you haven't changed your passwords in the last 6 months, you really should be thinking about, okay, do I change those passwords? If you're reusing passwords, there's so much information out there right now. Like the government has, lots of information on their website, cyber.gov.au. There's got Scam Watch, which is another real fantastic website that teaches about the scams that's out there at the moment. And then ID Care is another organization that helps if you have been part of these breaches and how to protect your identity. So there's so much resources out there now that there's no excuse for us not to be taking action.
Actually, there's only one. Actually, I might even be able to add to that list.
Go for it.
The one thing I actually always remembered as well was when taking a payment, to give them a call.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm making this transfer. Is this right?
That's your processes. Yeah, you should have so many good processes, especially around finances and paying invoices. Never pay an invoice without verifying, of having some method of verifying that those bank account details are right or are legit. And if an invoice from a customer comes in that you've been working with and they've changed bank account details, that's your first red flag. Definitely phone them up and verify why that payment or why those bank account details have been changed.
Yeah.
So that's a good one, Leanne. Good, go you.
Sometimes I'm onto it.
You're listening to me.
I do. Every time you talk, I learn something new. Like I said, if you walk into a room and you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So luckily, when you're there, I'm not the smartest person in the room.
And I definitely don't think I am either, or I'd be in the wrong room too.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I really appreciate it. And we will see you in a few days at our small business chat at LGAS, won't we?
Yes, looking forward to that. I always love in-person events as well. It's something special, especially with the Business Women Australia team.
Gotta love that team. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks. Chat to you soon.
Bye, everyone.